Mm.
NITS is the standard briefing for emergencies, and that's shared between cabin crew and also air traffic control. It's a very good brief format. So the nature of the
Yep.
problem, your intentions, the time it's going to take, and special instructions. So you can just get on the horn and just say, okay, nature of the problem, I've had an engine failure. Intention is to divert here. The time it's going to take is 15 minutes, and special instructions are all the fire crews on arrival. Done.
That's fantastic. Yeah, good framework.
Yeah, it's very handy. And then obviously a brief review for business. Sorry, Professor, how you doing? I will do. I've got a sneaking, horrible suspicion that DCS has thrown us a curveball again.
Yeah.
Just by virtue of the fact that the 132nd server is not showing again. It's going to take me a little bit of time just for my DCS to fire up. Okay, something is saying server offline. Okay. Yeah, the brain one is interesting, Choke, because it in an emergency especially, people have a desire to do something.
Yes.
And
Yeah, that's very true.
sometimes doing nothing is actually an appropriate course of action.
Mm. Yeah, you're right, or at least just assessing the situation before proceeding.
Yeah. What happened to my last? Something happened. Yeah, so we were flying along. This is across the central Atlantic and heading down towards the Caribbean. And we had an ICAS message pop up. We'd already pushed. This was with. We could have technical issues because airplanes don't like to be just stood on the ramp for ages.
Yeah.
Anyway, we pushed back, tried to start the engines, and the right engine wouldn't. The pack, basically there's a flow control valve for the bleed air, and that wouldn't open, so we weren't getting the pressure in the ducts for the right engine. So that meant we were down to one critical operating system in terms of packs. So we're like, okay. I mean, we had the APU one, but there's performance penalties around that.
Right.
Sorry, Professor. Do you want to? Have you done it? Sure.
I'm connected.
Yeah.
Fabulous.
Alrighty. Yeah, I'm in pit. Awesome.
Great.
Yeah.
Yep. We're good.
All right. So what I propose we do is this, and we just talk through our flow and see if there's a better way or a common way that we can agree. And I'll just write stuff down as we go. Okay, for sure. So first things first, Choke, how familiar are you with the A10 systems? You know where you're looking for stuff?
Yep. Yeah, absolutely.
Sweet. So battery master on?
Yep.
Battery inverter. You can test it if you want, but I'll just go battery inverter on. Or the inverter on, sorry. And then connect the ground power.
Chief, turn on the ground power.
Sorry about that.
Copy.
It's the HOTAS syncing with my...
Ground power is now
so far
on.
we've simply done 3 steps. We've turned the battery on, the inverter on, and the ground power's connected.
What was the discussion you were having about the ground power on Discord? So that what we normally do is connect the ground power.
Yeah.
Just to save the battery.
Not even save the battery. Sorry, Professor, go on.
Yep. Great.
It's actually a very good way of doing things, in my view, because the quality of life is so much improved in terms of being able to hear what's going on. And you do save fuel. I don't know what the fuel burn an hour is on the APU on the A10, but yeah, every little counts. Okay, so we've got the ground power connected. So I did 2 things at this point. I turn on the CDU and EGI.
Yeah, I do as well.
And at the same time, I will turn on the IFFCC to test JTRS and the CICU on and the MFCD screens. And that's just to start those systems warming up. You can also engage the pre-flight bit test at this point and then turn on your radios. So all I'm really doing is, in terms of a philosophy, getting some of the time consumers started and enabling me to talk to other people. So the CDU aligning and the bit test and the screens warming up are time consumers. So that's all I've done there. At this point, I'll then go back to the ground guy and select my armaments. I won't press the load all on the DTS or anything like that. I just want those screens alive in the background. But I'll go back and get my armaments sorted out now. So I suggest all we do is, so that we've actually got something to play with when we get to the appropriate point, is
Chief, turn on the ground power.
Place a couple of GBU 12s
Copy.
and a couple of MAVs on. What do you think, Professor? Have you got anything on?
Ground power is now on.
Correct, yeah. So, yeah, station 5 and 7 for GBU 12s, and as well, for stations, let's see, 8 and 4, we could put on a couple of Mark 82 airs just so we can look at that config. So we can put on, let's put on the station of 3 Mark 82 airs on 8 and 3 Mark 82 airs on 4. It's going to make us really heavy, but the point of the exercise is to be looking at profiles and stuff like that, not to actually go flying. You can always change it later. On station 9, a couple of, or just an AGM 65 of your choice. I'm going to put on a single H. And on station 3, a single H as well. And then obviously your lightning. Some rockets for aerodynamic balance. And the jammer. So just to review from left to right, station 11 I've got some AIM, station 10 the TGP, station 9 an AGM, station 8 3 times GBU, 3 times Mark 82 airs. Station 7 is a laser guided bomb, GBU 12, station 5 same, station 4 3 Mark 82s. Station 3 an AGM, Station 2 some rockets, and Station 1 pod.
Request rearming.
And
copy.
I better change my livery because I always forget to do that too. Yeah. Oh, that's cool. That's cool. So yeah, because then this is another time consumer. So yeah. So now your weapons are going on. You can come back down and start doing a flow from left to right. So I'm ensuring that my
rearming complete.
Frequency is correct. That my basically my radio frequencies are all aligned. I'm getting an ATIS because you want to do that quite early doors. Put in a squawk code. So in this case, we can put in 1200 because we're not actually going flying. That's just a conspicuity code, I believe. IFF switch to on, and then the mode Charlie switch to out. On the because Choke, how much do you know about the different modes in the transponder system?
Small amounts. The mode Charlie, that's for civilian use, isn't it?
Yeah.
What's that mode 3A?
So mode 3A and mode Charlie are different quality levels of the same thing, really. So mode Charlie gives position information and also barometric altitude to the observing system.
Yep.
So what happens is the radar unit on the ground, it's not a primary radar, it's secondary, it sends out an interrogation signal, and the aircraft system responds with basically a data block download of aircraft position where it thinks it is, and also the barometric altitude information. So if your altimeter is set wrong, the altitude will show wrong.
Yeah.
And then I just put that on standby with the audio to the actual out button to either light or audio. It doesn't really matter either way because I don't think it's modeled. Okay. So let's make a note of that then. So during the engine start procedure, you're talking about, Professor, for the...
Was that pre-taxi?
Okay, so we could do that now then.
Yep.
Okay, that's a good one to catch. I'm just making a note of that. And then above here, then we're into some sort of fairly non-standard but DCS forgivable items as far as I'm concerned. So obviously your boost pumps can go on. Now, I'm in two schools of thought about what I'm going to discuss next, and that is the SAS system.
Mm-hmm.
So it requires hydraulic power to run, I believe. My systems knowledge is not great. Professor, can you see any problem with turning these switches on at this point in time? Yeah, so
I've always done it afterwards because I'm worried about the hydraulics not being pressurized.
Yeah, well, I was exactly the same, and then I thought, you know what, I'm going to try it in both configurations and see what happens. Keeping a good eye on the hydraulic system pressure during engine start and stuff like that, and it makes not a jot of difference. And it's amazing how much you can actually do as soon as you've got even a modicum of hydraulic pressure, even during engine start. Because I thought that if you started fiddling around with the hydraulics during engine start, you might be putting back pressure through the system and get a hung start, but it doesn't seem to be the case. So anyway, so the SAS system can go on. Working up through. So I would do that once you've set your transponder panel, just go straight up and do the SAS panel. And then up to the fuel boost panel. And you can check the rest of the fuel switches on there, because if you've got a center tank, you'll be wanting to turn on that external tanks switch there. It says FUS for fuselage, if you've got it hanging directly underneath the aircraft there. And coming up, you've got anti-skid that can go on. And we've also now got our armaments on board, so you can press load all, and that will start going into the system. And that takes about 15 seconds. I've also uncaged my standby attitude indicator. And let's see, let me just refer to what I've done so far. Your standby attitude indicator. Yeah, that's a bug that was introduced in the, I think, the last but one update. It's been reported on the DTS side. Because it's almost virtually impossible to cage now as well. So your DTS upload should be complete now. So I simply select TAD. And this is where a flow starts to develop. So I'm going to almost do it like a little triangle. So up on your HUD, you should now have all your pre-flight bit complete. So press enter for exit. And then you go down to the bottom, exit again. If you're going to select CCIP consent mode to 5 mil, this is the time to do it. So you do that just by pressing the choke. You familiar with how to do all this?
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. So yeah, you can select what you want there. And then the IFCC switch to on, which brings up your standard data display on your HUD. Come back and press TAD again to make your TAD soy. And this is a nice little, some people are aware of this, some people are not. And zoom out to 10 miles. And then on the top left, you see map auto. Press that twice, I believe, until you get map manual. And then zoom back into 5 miles. And then if you press the adjust key on the top left, press the minus, you'll get a much more detailed map, which you can then zoom out of or zoom into. Yeah, so that's you can get quite a lot of good road detail on that, and some built barrier structures and things like that. So that's quite handy. Yeah, so especially if you then go into the expanded mode, you can get quite a lot of really cool detail. And of course, if you press the minus again, you can make the whole screen go dark. So it's good for decluttering if you just want to be looking at mark points or your flight plan or something. So that's something that I do habitually. The next thing is part of this workflow, and I'll just before I continue, the philosophy from here is to work from left to right using the OSB buttons on the bottom. So you can set your net. So let's set a group ID of, say, 33, just for giggles. So group ID 33, I'll go 1-1. Professor, you can go 1-2. Choke, you can go 1-3. And then we'll be all squared away with that. And that's the TAD configuration complete as regards for me. The call thing on the bottom left is interesting. So if we were, say, claw, you could type in claw, 4 letters in there, push it in under that call button, and that will then appear if you, I think if you pop onto a... Yeah, good. Yep. Oh, that's really cool. Yeah, I like that. Yeah, I agree. Yeah. Okay. So I'm just making a note of that, but I'm trying to think of the best way to write it.
So when I put in that Charlie Whiskey 33, it just says Charlie Whiskey, no numbers. Is that correct?
Oh
no, I did it. I got it.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, there's a common gotcha where people are especially for me, because I've got my whole keyboard slaved to the CD.
Yeah, I do as well. I just realized I typed it on the top numbers instead of the right ones.
Yeah, and also you can end up with a error message in the scratch pad, and you're there bashing away trying to put stuff into an input,
Yeah.
and it's not happening, and you're going, what the hell is going on with the system? But anyway, that's the TAD config done, unless there's anything that I've forgotten or anything that anybody can contribute. Position to flash. Oh yes, yeah. No, I have forgotten that. Yeah, that's one of the very first things. So when you come down and turn on your EGI CDU, that's normally a good time to do your external lights. So we'll add that in. And then, so the TAD, I think we can call that complete. And then the Dismas. So go to the Dismas. And there's a couple of things we can do at this point. While you've got the Dismas page up, also go down and turn on your TGP, because that's going to be coming next. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is we want to get some laser codes into our GBU12s. So if you press inventory, select a store with a GBU12, and then inventory stat at the top of the page. And I'm going to set my code to say 1551, and show can be 1553. And then load sim at the bottom, and then I'll select them both on the appropriate sides. So the next thing in terms of setting bomb profiles is this Mark 82 Air, which is interesting. So if you select that station, inventory stat at the top, you can see on the right side you've got config fixed high. So that means that the bomb is only droppable with a nose tail configuration. So fixed height, fixed high drag. Cycle through that, you've got fixed low drag, pilot option, and then pilot option 1. Pilot option 1 means you can select the fuse settings you require for the particular bomb drop. So you're not actually setting the fusing settings on the bomb itself with this, just selecting the profile that you're going to be deploying at that particular time. And again, load sim, and you'll see pilot option 1 on both of those bombs as well. So now okay, that's cool. Go back to the Dismas front page, and you should now see a summary there of 155, your laser code, and then pilot option 1 on the Mark 82 Airs. Now, if we want to set a profile for the Mark 82 Airs at this point, there's after much reading, it turns out there's a bug associated with this. So normally we go into profile top left and set our profile that way. However, if you do that, pilot option 1 won't be latched in the profile. So what you've got to do is select a station with the Mark 82 Air on it to highlight it white. Then select profile, and you can now see the config is there as pilot option 1. And you can select nose only in terms of the fusing. And you can set that as 82 space LALD for Mark 82, low altitude, low drag. Pop that into your new slot, and you'll see 82 LALD, and then save that as a profile. And that should take you to your profiles screen, and it should be highlighted white at the moment.
Sorry, what was the second part of that? So I've got the nose fusing.
Yeah, so you got your let's see, you set your Mark 82 station, you go to profile. Yeah, so let me just rewind. Yeah, so you've selected the nose fusing on the right hand side.
Yep.
And then you can create a profile name for it.
Right.
Now there's a sort of convention where the first number is the number of the bomb type. So Mark 82 is 82.
Right.
Then there's a space, and then there's a 4-letter profile. So it could be low altitude, so LA, or it could be high altitude, HA, low drag, LD, or high drag, HD. So in this case, it's going to be low altitude, low drag.
Got it.
And then you set that into your new and then save. As part of that process, you may have a restriction on your altitude that you might want to put in there. So for a low altitude drag bomb, it's going to be hitting the ground at the same time you're going over the target if you're overflying the target. So for that reason, you want to be doing turn level turn as an escape maneuver, or you want to be establishing a minimum altitude for drop. Okay. What's the operational consequence of that, Professor, in terms of how we manage the delivery? Sure. Good shout. So we've selected we've created one profile for 82 low altitude low drag. We can do another one for low altitude high drag. So we'll do that. So select the station again, the same station, it doesn't matter. And then select profile. You've got single, nose tail, CCIP, and all that kind of good stuff showing. We'll leave the nose tail as it is. We've only got 2 bombs, so we can leave single as it is, but we want to create a new profile. So 82, and then low altitude, high drag, and save that into your profiles. So now when you're back on the profile main page, you should have weapons off, Mark 5, Maverick, Mark 82, APO, GBU-12, 82 LALD, and 82 LAHD. So now, all I do is I scroll up to the Mark 82 APO using the up and down arrow keys on the left hand side of the MFCD there. And I turn that profile off on the right hand side because I'm not going to use that Mark 82 APO profile ever. So turn that profile off so it doesn't even come up on your selections on the HUD when you're cycling through your weapons profiles. Are you with us on that, Jake?
Yeah, absolutely.
Sweet. Go back to Dismas, you've still got that store highlighted white, so you can deselect that. And now if you go to profile, just as a double check, scroll down and let's see, select one of the 82 profiles that you've just created, view profile, and you can see your config pilot option 1 is there. So you know that when you come to select that profile, you're not going to get a fusing error if you try and drop. So we can now, we've got 2 bombs on the wings, neither of which are actually set to a particular fusing type. You've got the option. So you can decide on the fly that you want to do a low altitude high drag bomb run, or you might decide on the fly that you want to do a low altitude low drag, or vice versa. And it's simply a case of cycling through your profiles to determine what profile of drag that you're going to deploy on the Mark 82. So it's a very flexible system. Yeah, it's such a I mean, it's a bit more effort on the ground, it's a bit more time, but once you start building the fluidity, it takes literally 10, 20 seconds. And it builds in that flexibility in the air. So you can say, okay, look, there's a house there. I want to, I want to do a particular type of drop so that my bomb doesn't fly through the guy's attic, So just to sort of make up an example, but that's how that system works. Okay, so then we go back to our Dismas main page. Just hit the Dismas button on the bottom again to take us back to the front page. We've got a couple of pages there. Now, Professor, we kind of talked about this earlier with regard to the timers. The timers on. Yeah, and in actual fact, I've noticed that you get a white ticker flag pop up once you start getting close towards that limitation on the seeker head. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I mean, as a workaround, you could always go select the missile page, the missile control page on the top. On the right hand side, Jake, I'm sure you're aware of this, you've got the man for turning on the engine, turning on the seeker head alignment, or you've got location, or you've got timer. Time on my clock is now 0433. So if you expect it to be fencing and it's say 450, you could set that for a time to come on 045000. Or you can set a location. But with the location, again, it's not intuitive. You've got to be going through the waypoint and out the other side. So if you wanted to set it for waypoint 1, you have to have gone through waypoint 1 and out the other side on your desired radial, and then you can set a range, so the bearing there, and then you set a range. You can be really sort of generous with that, but you have to have gone through the waypoint before it starts detecting that. It won't do it on the way to a waypoint. So it's not intuitive at all, that location function.
Got it.
The AIM 9 on the left-hand side, that's got a cooling function. That's got a weight on wheels restriction because there's some fairly toxic stuff going on with that particular system. So you can't activate that cooling until your weight on wheels switches off, i.e. airborne. Okay. Which is a shame, because it'd be nice to have, you know, a big penalty for not remembering to cool your heads, but hey. And that, I think, is pretty much the end of the Dismas setup there.
Great.
TGP. So your TGP should be warm now because you remembered to turn on your TGP button. So you select A to ground.
Request rearming.
There's a whole bunch of real life stuff that you can do at this point, but we'll just do the essentials. So go to control, and you can select latch off, latch on. And here is where also, as standard, we will put in our laser codes. So I'm going to stick in, I'll stick in my own code for myself, and I'll stick in Professor's for now, but you know, it could be, that'll change as per mission requirement. There's an interesting little thing I noticed with this control page, and that is if you're doing a bomb drop,
Rearming complete.
fiddling around with those settings. I think we talked about this during the actual mission we were doing this, Professor. I think it was with you. If you're doing laser guided bomb drops and you're looking for your timer to impact, which is kind of important when you're doing lasing and stuff, if you've got this control page up, you'll lose the clock on your on your display. There's one on the HUD, but if in the sort of heat of the moment your workload is such that you're going, oh crap, I've lost my clock. Just coming back here and pressing return back to that main screen will bring up the bomb clock again on the right hand side there. So underneath where it says 0.1, where you're currently looking at the ramp area in front of the aircraft here, just below that there'll be your bomb timer. If you go to control, that timer will be removed, and then if you return, that timer will come back. So if you're making changes to your TGP system, it's a good workload ethic, I think, to come back out of that control page, back to your TGP master page. So that's our TGP config setup, I believe. I don't think there's anything else in there. So you can set that back to standby, and then go to stat. On the next page, so top left, next page, scroll down to throttle, and on the slew side, on the right hand side, is what you can use to determine how fast your sensors slew. So if you're getting really hacked off with how fast your TGP is slaving all over the landscape, it's again counterintuitive. A higher number means slower. So I typically put in 8, and that slows down my TGP slew across the landscape. And you can also bind a curve into your TGP sensor as well if you've got HOTAS.
Yeah, I normally have mine set about 6 or 7.
Yeah. So that's
Do you have that add-on to the Warthog? Or not? That mod that people do for the slew?
No. I
Okay.
just set a curve and I use this as well. So if I just give the button a little nudge, it's just a very slight movement. So that's done. So back to TAD, just to set that for your ops use. So that's that side of the display set. And again, that should take less than a minute once you're in the flow, once you know what you're doing. On to the right hand side, TGP we've done. MAV, you can select that, and you can adjust your slew speed there, if you so desired. CDU, when you're up to speed with the flow, you'll be getting to this point at roughly the same time that the INS system has finished aligning. So you might be at about 3.8, 3.9. Obviously decimals is 6 seconds, so you've got to wait 12 seconds for it to finish typically once you're up to speed. So you can press nav and then EGI to bring that system up online. And then I do function position on the upfront controller to then change IAS on the right hand side to ground speed, ready for taxi. I then do function waypoint to bring anchor point to the HUD. I then do function flight plan, which is function number 5. And I select manual on my flight plan so that I'm in control of the waypoints. And at the same time, this is just a personal thing. This is not something I suggest is mandated for general use, but it's up to you guys if you want to adopt this as a workload thing. I'll select TGT. I'll just type TGT and select a new flight plan. And that way, if there's something that pops up which is all of a sudden requiring some management of workload, say you've got multiple target groups, multiple vehicle groups, you can drop them into that TGT and it saves cluttering up your flight plan. So basically, once you're in an area of operation and you're in an anchor, you're not really going anywhere. You don't need to be navigating. So what you can do is start dropping vehicle groups into a separate flight plan, working through that flight plan. You can then delete waypoints from that flight plan as required. And then once you're ready to start resuming your en route navigation, you simply go back to your mission flight plan.
That's great, yeah.
Yeah, I just find it I find it a very useful workload management tool, and it saves having lines appearing all over your map and cluttering up screens and stuff as well. And you can actually do the same thing for anything else you choose. I mean, on occasion I've had sort of 3 or 4 flight plans up and running, depending on the tasking that I am engaged with at that particular time. Once you start using the data loader choke, you can have a flight plan for your arrival or your departure, or your alternate. There's loads of stuff you can do.
Fantastic.
So that's the, and then once I've done that, I come back to, what do I come back to normally? Yeah, once we've done the swing check and stuff, I just come back to position. So you've got the ground speed up. That's going to be the screen that's going to be next required for taxi and stuff. Coming down on the right hand side, your countermeasure suite. That's a good time to set that. And obviously, you know how I missed out the lights at the very start? Also, your master, your signal lamp, your signal lights lamp test, and your fire detect bleed air leak test. You would do that as well at that point when you're, just before you set your external lights. And I think that's quite important to do, especially with failures on, because I don't know if you could have caution warning light failures, or you could have your fire detect system fail or something like that. Also, you want to be checking your fuel quantity. And with that checking the fuel quantity, not so much important today, but I think it's a good practice to rotate that fuel display select button to check where your fuel is. So in this case, we know we've got some in the mains, we've got some in the wings. So if you end up with bullet holes all over your wings, it's a fairly good bet that you're going to be losing some of that fuel. So you can make a very quick estimation of where the majority of your fuel is and where it is safest. And again, with your external stores as well, if you've got some external stores on, it's a good idea to check you've actually got the fuel inside your external stores and not just an empty tank. So I think that's quite a good habit to get into. And again, if you do suffer battle damage, it's a good idea to, you know, if you say you look out your window and you've got holes all over your right wing, you can then select your wing and see if you're losing fuel out of your wing instead of having to keep an eye on a much coarser master level. So it's quite a good idea to bring that particular selector into your awareness sort of flow. Coming down the right hand side then, your oxygen obviously on and tested as part of that initial doodah. And then, yeah, so making sure you got, if there's an ILS frequency, not for Al Dafra, but there's one up at Al Minhab, I believe. So you can always pre-select that in there now, knowing that if you ever needed to go to Al Minhab as an alternate, you don't have to worry because you've already set the frequency. So that's one less thing. Because the only reason you'd be going to Al Minhab is because the brown stuff has hit the windmill, and you're going to be probably task saturated anyway. So it's one less thing to have to worry about because you don't have to find it, you don't have to put it in, you don't have to all that kind of jazz. Your TACAN obviously for your yardstick, and that's about it. So in terms of a work ethic, I'm looking to finish a block of work before I engage in the next block of work. So all this is pre-flight. And I regard all this as a pre-flight block of work. So once I'm satisfied that I've done all this, then I can consider that block of work done. So Professor, is there anything else that you think we need to think about in terms of configuring aircraft systems at this point? Good. So the next block of work will be the engine start sequence. So we devote then all our mental attention towards completing the next block of work, which is the engine start sequence. So at this point, I use a couple of triggers. I close the canopy, and once the canopy is closed, I look above me to make sure I'm not inside a hangar, and I arm the ejection seat. So let's close our canopies. Okay. Yeah, I do that after engine start. I don't know why I do that after engine start, but yeah, we could do that now. Very good. I like that pattern that appears on the caution.
That's good. There.
Yeah. So we'll bring that in. Professor, are you making a note of that? Or I'll try and make a note. I think we should probably do this again at some point just to make sure we firm it up. Okay. Okay, for sure. Okay, so we've closed the canopy, we've set our ejection seats, so now we should just have those 6 lights there. Now you'll notice that the AC generators on the main engines are off, and that's for a specific reason. I haven't forgotten them. So let's go and start the APU and get the APU generator online. Well, one thing I also forgot is I generally try and set my HSI to something useful initially. So either it's runway heading or it's the first course after departure on the departure itself. That's just a reminder. Right, so APU is now at 100%, so I can set the APU generator power on. I'll bring up a master caution. Ensure it's actually, when you get a caution, don't just cancel the attention getter without checking first to see what the actual caution is that's come on, because you might get a failure at the same time, but it's not associated. But anyway, we've got APU generator caution, so now we can get rid of the APU generators on lines, rid of the ground power. So yeah, switch the APU generator on, and then ground power off.
Chief, turn off the ground power. Copy.
So we've just done a systems test on the APU generator, because obviously if this failed and we ended up with a cold dark aircraft, much better to find out now than before we have a double engine failure in flight and have to, you know, and we're wanting an APU generator and we haven't got one. So the APU generator works. Now we start left engine. And again, I'm verifying that the engine start cycle light is illuminating on the caution and warning panel. And then I'm just monitoring the engine start as standard. Notice the hydraulic system coming alive, just above the fuel gauge there. And once that's up, then you've got control over flat movement, but not over your speed brakes and stuff like that. So at this point, if you're particularly feeling gash, you could move your flaps, but for completeness, I normally leave it until both engines are started. And again, once the engine is stabilised, that's not actually the end of that engine start cycle. You've got to wait until that light goes out on the caution warning panel before that engine start cycle is complete. Once it has done so, don't turn on the AC generators yet, start the other engine. Because we're going to do a generator function test. Yeah, so, and I'll show you the flow behind that. Because again, you want to find out if it's failed before you actually go flying. Because if one of the generators is packed in, and you get an engine failure on the other engine, then you've got no electrical power. Right, so both my engines are now started, but my AC generators are off. If you guys let me know once your engine start cycles are complete.
Complete.
Awesome. So now turn on the left AC generator, and you'll get APU generator trip out. So turn off your APU generator. So now we're running on the single left-hand AC gen. Turn on the right AC generator. Turn off the left AC generator. And we're now running off the right AC gen. Turn the AC generators back on. And that's your AC generator system test. And then your APU off. So we verified that both AC generators are running and capable of supplying power. Now I run the flaps to full up and then to the takeoff position. So this is still part of the block of work. We haven't yet completed our block of work. I'll run the speed brakes, because again, it's better to find out here that they don't work. And then I'll run the control test. And then I'll set my nose steering on, once I've done my rudders as well. And it's actually worth doing this, because I had a problem with my USB on my rudders once, and my rudders weren't working. So, kind of good to find out before you try and start moving anywhere. And then once your nose steering is engaged,
Chief, turn off the ground power.
You can set your taxi light on.
Copy.
Your position flash to steady.
Ground power is now off.
And at that point, I believe we can announce that we are ready for taxi, unless I missed anything. Cool. And that's, I'll make a note of that. Oh yeah, because there's an SAP written down somewhere, isn't there? About you use a taxi light in a radio silence environment to announce. Yeah, I remember that.
Let them know you're taxing.
Yeah. Okay. So in terms of a workflow, I think that's our engine start workflow complete. One thing I forgot as well is on your countermeasures suite, you should be setting your jammer to SAM2, I believe, as a default. So yeah, that's just an initial sweep up though, and so yeah, pretty happy we've done everything. Good. And that's all I've got to offer on that one. Is there any reason why we can't run through a fencing check right here, right now, just for...
Yeah.
What systems are compromised? Okay, so Professor, do you want to run through the fencing check as you understand it? Because this is something that I haven't got the necessarily a good standard. Yep. Yeah, and you know that's happened because your anti-collision will go off. Yeah. 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 Okay. I shouldn't laugh because I'll probably do that at some point, but yeah. Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
Yep. Okay. Sure. That's with a mod. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Can you remember what that mod is called, Professor? Just because okay. Yeah, I'll have a look for that once I'll try and use that. Yes. Yeah, I concur.
Yep.
Fire control panel, emitters, nav, comms, and then external emitters. Yeah, that covers everything, doesn't it? Yeah. Question about the transponder. So obviously while we're operating in a friendly environment, you want the transponder up and displaying. As part of the fencing check, is it required to turn the transponder off? Okay. Yeah. Sure, that's cool. All right. I have no further questions. Reverse.
Reverse order. Yep.
Yeah. Hey, Furface, sorry, mate, we're running a little bit late.
And just a question: what are we telling each other on the radios during the fence in and fence out? For instance, in the fence out, are we giving a fuel state to the lead, or? So fenced in the green. Yep. Got it. And as a battle damage check or body skills check, is that standard for every fence out? Yeah. Right. Yep. All right.
Yeah.
Thank
Ta-da! And
Chief, turn on the ground power.
done.
Copy. Ground power is now on.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah. Sure. Yeah, I find that. The real life, I mean, this is obviously a sim, but yeah, real life, the radar warning receiver, if you turn that on and there's nothing on the pod, you can get current going through there and, kill the, or give the poor ground guy a nasty shock. Yeah, for sure. So it shouldn't be a threat. Yeah. Yeah, correct. Sure. Sure.
Request rearming. Copy.
Yeah.
That's a big problem in the F-16, putting stores on while the INS is aligning, because it shakes the aircraft and throws off the alignment.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, the alignment just stops because the aircraft shakes so much. This is a bit of a sturdier aircraft.
Rearming complete.
Cab is just not modelled, but in the F-16 that's a problem.
Yeah, right. I mean, what happens if it's a windy day?
You don't go flying. That's the F-16 for you.
I mean, I've been feeling seasick in an airplane before, trying to get things ready to go. That's interesting.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
Yeah, might come with Mark II though. That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
Sure. You like that? Do you like that map trick about map to manual? Yeah. Yeah, actually, that's a pain. Yeah. Yeah, I'm pretty sure the brightness on the screens is still stuffed. Okay. Cool. Yeah, the only time I'm mucking around with the Mav Seeker head alignment, the Mav Seeker head slave rate, is if I'm running H's and you intend to use force correlate or something like that. That can be useful.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, that's a good workload. Good workflow. Okay. Sure. Yes. Oh yeah, okay. And I can see the ground speed selector on the bottom right there. That's a good. That's worth writing in somewhere as well, I think. Yeah. Yeah. Sure.
It's interesting that you like the HUD so busy when you just come from the F-14, but fair enough. The pole size code, yeah, I always do that one. That's good. Yeah, great.
If your HUD gets shot away, choke, and you need to get hold of your balls if you're about to eject, just hitting anchor down in your bottom
Yeah.
center screen. Yeah, I'll bring it up on there as well.
Yeah.
Sure. Indeed. That workflow that I introduced earlier about starting the APU generator on, ground power away to test the APU generator, that catches that as a threat, and then turning on the APU generators one at a time to test their functionality. The only gotcha in there, as far as I can tell, is that if your APU generator is balked, then you're going to end up with a cold airplane. But you're not going to go flying at that point anyway, because you don't want to go without an APU generator functioning. So I don't know. It's a tricky one to decide on the most appropriate course of action with that one. But I can see the rationale behind that AC generated check. Okay. In mission, do we have random failures on or off, or if we're flying on the always on? Okay, that's interesting. Because I thought they were on, so I've been legitimately checking all my systems, thinking, okay, yeah, I haven't had a random failure yet.
You probably shouldn't have told us to keep us guessing about whether they're on or off.
Yeah. So. Yeah, correct. Let's see. What can we use as a trigger for that? I guess once the after start is complete, I referenced breaking things into blocks of work so that you don't get distracted with tasks. Yeah. Yeah, I agree, and you can even build in the flow with that. So starting from once you've got engine start, starting from the HOTAS, you're running your flaps, your speed brakes, then the SAS system.
Turn off the ground power.
Anti-skid is on. You're verifying if the selector is in the green, and then you're verifying
ground power
that
is
your
now
control functions are complete and your nose steering is on.
Yeah.
And the last part of that would be your lights to steady. So I think that's a good flow to introduce at that point. Yeah, that would work. Because then you've got at least a couple of cross-checks in there as well. Not necessarily with the takeoff trim, but you would cover that as part of your flow. So working from your HOTAS with the flaps to the speed brakes to the SAS, and then you're doing a cross-check on your flaps, because that's quite a critical point. And then you've got another check later on with your flash lineup check. Check, you know about the flash, do you?
Say again?
Have you heard of the flash mnemonic for lineup?
No, I haven't.
Okay, so I've kind of made it a bit more dirty. I've introduced a T on the end to make it flashed, dirty old man overcoat. So you got flash is flaps. So you do this just as you're approaching the runway. Flaps, make sure they're set. Lights, make sure they're set. Anti-skid, make sure that's set. Seat, make sure that's set. In this case, you don't have to worry about harness, obviously, but in terms of your position. Heat is your pitot heat set.
Pitot, yeah.
And then T for transponder, which should be on already. So yeah, flashed.
Great.
Yeah, it's. Do you know what? There's plenty of examples of people that have, and plenty of examples of people that will. But yeah, that flash is a great mnemonic, or flashed. It's a great mnemonic, and it's something that becomes habitual very quickly.
Yeah, excellent.
What else is there? I think that's pretty much it, isn't it, Professor? So I'll try and get a write-up on what we've just done, and then I'll fire it off to you. And then if you have a look, and then we can look at what's good practice and what can be variable practice and what needs to be changed, and then we can start coming up with a sort of standard way of doing stuff so that the errors get cut out.
Hello.
Yo, how we doing?
Hello.
Oh, it's working. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm technically working, but yeah, I mean,
Hey,
attending.
hey, if you're talking to us, it's working, man.
I mean, Monday's bank holiday, isn't it? So
Yeah.
a lot of people doing longer weekend. So yeah.
Not if you're
Also-
Scottish.
Yeah. But yeah, we've just finished up, but we were looking at a good, easy, memorable flow that catches everything in terms of critical systems and reducing errors. So I think we come up with a pretty good system, pretty good method. What are your thoughts, Professor? Are you happy with what we've done?
Yes, I am very, very happy with it. Question to the people watching the stream: are you able to hear my voice now? And if so, please ping me shortly. Yeah, I believe that's it. We have our startup flow. We have our engine start. We have runway lineup or pre takeoff, and we have fence in, and this is the most important thing that we need. And then, yeah, I believe that's it.
And I think making a clear delineation there of blocks of work to break things down, so that your mindset is literally, okay, I'm engaged in this block of work right now, and then I finish that off, then I'll move on to the next block of work, and you're just ticking stuff off in your mind, and then it works quite well.
Yes.
The flash and the fencing check, those are rushed often because it's a time compressed environment when you're doing those things. So approaching the runway and all the stuff going on, your headspace is often off the threshold already. So that flashed is a very good mnemonic just to make sure you slow down, go through stuff. And then the fencing check, I think, gets rushed as well.
This is.
Sorry, Professor, go on.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
Well, I think there's a tendency, certainly from the wingman perspective, to try and get things done quickly to report back to the lead as quickly as possible. Whereas oftentimes I think taking that extra 30 seconds on the fence check, not even 30 seconds, extra 5 to 10 seconds on the fence check is to get things right in terms of checking your laser codes and your seeker heads and stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And what we should do is, I mean, this is more for us as IPs, is when we fly with our TRs, we actually need to make sure that our TRs do these flows that we are going to establish.
Oh yeah, that reminds me, Professor. I don't know if this is worth you guys considering, but on Discord you can share your screen, right?
Yes.
So you could share your screen to make, not as a check, but to, like on the ground here on the ramp, for example, if you've got a new trainee brand new to the squadron, you could go through all the system stuff just by sharing screens.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I never thought about it.
Yeah, so it's a great resource. So you can do exactly what we've just done here with the trainee, and talk about system stuff while the capacity is really good. Because once you're overhead the range and you're going around in circles and there's stuff happening left, right, and centre, it's very easy for your candidate to get task saturated, and the capacity just goes down the pipe.
Yeah.
Yeah, Discord is a good point. I use it for the Rio because you can't actually show the back seat otherwise. But if you share your screen in Discord, then it's another thing.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea.
I've actually seen people share their screen, SIP for example, in range work to show other people, hey, look, that's my references, this is how it looks from your perspective, how I attack and so on, while the trainee is orbiting around the range.
Yeah, that's not a bad idea too. But yeah, I mean, these are all resources which I think can be pulled in and used effectively. Yeah, in terms of getting the information flow out there, well, while you're creating space for the receiving of information. So you can say to the guy, look, we're not going to do anything for the next 10 minutes. I just want you to concentrate on this. So yeah. But, I mean, to be honest, Professor, I've had absolutely no dramas with the way things were taught to me through the process. I thought the standard of instruction has been superb. But in terms of being able to sit here and get systems knowledge, I think that is a great way of saving time in the air, because you're not then pushing buttons randomly in the air trying to get stuff to work.
Yeah, okay. That's a good point. And I just noticed we forgot one more thing. We forgot the brake check after starting to taxi.
Yeah, so after starting, and again, sort of, I normally do a brake check and a little wiggle on the nose steering too to make sure that's actually functioning. But if failure's not turned on, then that shouldn't be a problem anyway. And of course, you've got your hydraulic check as well. Obviously, you're going to be looking at your instrumentation. But yeah, brake check is important.
Yeah.
I can't think of anything else though. There's a couple of gotchas in terms of, and I'm only going to share this one because I've done it, and that's with the countermeasure suite. If you're adjusting programs on the ground, your enter is once you've finished editing your profile. I mean, I assume everybody knows how to change their countermeasures profiles on the CMS panel, if not pipe up, and I'll quickly whiz through that. But it's very easy to change profiles in the CMS and then go to press enter, which is the right hand button on the top of that little panel there. It's also quite close to your jettison switch. So I have sat there in a cloud of tinfoil with lights all around me while my engines are going, so that would have been a bit of a mess.
Does the jettison actually work on the ground? Because all other functions are inhibited by weight on wheels.
I just did it, and it sure does work.
Oh yeah, nice firework.
Yeah.
So there you go. Yeah, it can happen. And the other one, which is sorry, Professor.
As long as no one saw it.
This is incredibly dangerous for the guys working around the aircraft.
Yeah, and if your engines are turning.
Yeah, I think about 120 flares just popping right in your face as you walk past the aircraft.
I know. So I don't know if that's a DCS-ism, where whether or not the weight on wheel switch would actually inhibit that function.
Well, you can turn off the weight on wheel switch as well. So.
Can you? Is
yeah,
there or is there?
No, the very, very left side of the aircraft, there's a red switch that you can pull up. A red guard, pull up that switch and then throw the switch forward. And now you can, and then you can fire the gun on the ground or do whatever you want on the ground.
Oh, jeez. You don't want to tell people that.
Yeah.
And then the other one, which is a good gotcha, and again, I think this is a function of seat position and DCS combined, is that if you're making up front controller selections, you can inadvertently pull the fire APU pull handle, and then there's a delay while the fuel line's empty, and then your APU will go quiet. That's if you're running on APU. Or if indeed you go and try and start your APU, you'll just end up with effectively the building APU. So that's another little gotcha to watch out for.
Or you're quickly trying to close your canopy because you're scrambling and you jettison the canopy. That's
what you're doing, mate, is you're getting rid of the windscreen sort of reflections. I like that. It's a very good way to go flying. There are all these things which are good gotchas, but by sharing them we stop.
This is something I've done during RTP in a training mission when we are still flying on the Caucasus map. It was just shortly after I have set all my CTU functions to my physical keyboard in front of me, and I changed the canopy jettison in that case as well, and I accidentally jettisoned my canopy.
That's a good way to fail a check ride.
Yeah, and then I shamefully declared an emergency and limped back.
For the flying, I would have been unable to talk, mate. I would have been laughing my bits off.
That's not quite an emergency in an A10. It's a pan at best.
That would have been brilliant. I would have paid to see that, Professor.
Yeah.
Yeah, jettisoning weapons in a hurry. That can, I suppose, that's another one that can happen.
Yeah, this actually happened during one of the check rides.
Oh, what, somebody jettisoned their weapons?
Yes, somebody during his check ride immediately after takeoff jettisoned all his stores.
That's fantastic.
See you guys. Bye-bye.
No worries, mate. Okay.
All right,
That's
Yeah,
something I did as well, actually, with in a CAS flight. The problem is when you have the chat box open, or the VIA scratch pad that's in the left side of the canopy, and I wanted to focus on that with the mouse and accidentally clicked the red jettison button. It just did gadung gadung.
It really should be a guarded switch, shouldn't it? I mean, I'm surprised
Yeah.
it's not a guarded switch. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. The funny stuff happens. But anyway, look, that's all I've got to contribute, I think, at this point.
Yeah. I believe we're all set.
Yeah, so I'll write that up, Professor. I'll try and do that this afternoon, and then I'll get it off to you for corrections and stuff, and then it can start to be used, I suppose.
Yeah, that would be super cool.
Cool. All right. Fairface, sorry I overran, mate. I know we were going to start at midday, so I'll catch up with you in a sec on Discord, and we'll sort something out.
Yeah, it's not a problem. I'm going to go and watch the Professor's stream from the beginning, so shouldn't be a problem.
Okay, cool. And like I say, I'm going to get a write-up done anyway, so that'll sort of tidy off things.
Superb.
And once it's been approved, then it can start being circulated.
One question, because sorry I wasn't for the earlier part of the screen. Did you discuss about turning on the interior lights, even if it's daylight at the beginning?
No, we didn't. In terms of your cockpit lighting, in terms of engine instrumentation lighting and that kind of stuff, we didn't discuss that. I sort of leave that for personal preference. I guess it's a good idea to have the emergency floodlight bound to something, because if you jump into pit and it's a dark night, you won't be able to find that button.
Yep.
So having that set to a keybind is a really good idea.
Or the flashlight.
Yeah.
The agency at the moment has no flashlight, but you can use the same key function for the emergency floodlights. These will always work even without battery. So just use left Alt and Lima.
Yeah. So that's quite handy to know. There's a couple of things run off the hot bus actually about emergency floodlights being one of them. And then of course a lot of the floodlights are on the canopy. If you look behind your shoulders, you'll see the floodlights are actually on the canopy mount. So if the canopy's open, they'll be pointing in the sky and your illumination is poor. So the next thing you'll probably want to do is shut the canopy to actually increase your illumination in the cockpit.
Another good reason to have a canopy as well.
Yeah, so not only if you jettison your canopy will you be sitting in the dark as well as the cold.
Yeah, and in the rain.
Yeah, you've gone from a really comfortable warm cozy existence to really, really not happy in one fell swoop.
Yeah.
The reason why I say that is more like if you fly, for example, in the early evening, you have normal day out, but then suddenly it gets dark. It can be distracting and be at the wrong moment for you to turn on the all your instrument lights and so on. I, for example, did that a while ago, actually via on short final, because I couldn't see anything in the cockpit anymore.
Yeah, that's a good point actually. So, in changing light conditions, that's certainly something to factor in. And I don't suppose there's any reason why on earth you you couldn't just default to having them in the 50% position as a starting point. I mean, it's not as though we have to worry about heat build-up on the instrumentation or anything.
Yeah.
So, alright, well guys, I'm going to go off and get myself a cup of tea because that's just my national characteristic. And yeah, Professor, I'll work on that right up this afternoon and try and get that to you for this evening.
Okay, cool.
Just to get it done. And then, yeah, we can take it from there. It's been a pleasure showing these ideas, guys.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, fantastic. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, thanks for that.
And I'll be flying with you on Sunday.
Cool.
Yeah, a lot of fun. I think we should do more of these. Getting good ideas about workflows and stuff. I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, it's good. I think everyone's got a different way of doing things. It's good to learn.
Yeah. Alright guys, I'm going to love you and leave you, and I'll catch up with you later.
Okay.
All right.
Ciao.
There you
Ciao,
go.
ciao.
Ciao, ciao.
Furface, do you need any further assistance with the startup of the A10, or are you just rewatching the stream?
I'm going to watch your stream just to clarify a few things in my own head, and then hopefully at some point over the weekend I'd like to confirm my SARS is working. It should be, because it works with the F14, but it's just a sanity check, that's all.
Yeah, the only thing that you need to make sure is that you have a new profile for the A10, and that you have the 3 radios bound to 3 radios on to the 3 buttons on your HOTAS. And if you have that, then you're golden. You do not need the SOS transponder function. You can just switch on the transponder in the pit, and that's all you need.
Okay, copy that. Thank you very much.
Okay, cool. If you have any further questions, or if anything's not clear from the stream, then just pop a question in our squadron channel and someone will help you.
Yeah, no worries at all. Thanks a lot, gentlemen. Speak to you later.
Yes, speak to you later. Bye bye.